All right, we'll go ahead and call this work session to order. We've met a little early today because we have a lot of topics to cover. If it's all right with everybody here, we have two elected county officials with us here today. We have our school board representative, Ben Connor. Thank you for joining us. And we have our county commissioner as well, Mr. David Sharp, Commissioner David Sharp with us. Thank you both for joining us.
Well, we have Mr. Commissioner in the whole entourage.
Indeed, we do have the full suite
Yes,
of Connors with us today. Given Representative Connor has a short timeline, if it's all right with everyone, we'll move item 3 to the top of the agenda. Hamilton County Schools Joint Proposed Facilities Plan. Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Connor, Representative Connor, would you like to say anything?
I want to thank you very much for moving it to the beginning. I want to be here as long as possible. Best laid plans in life, as normally don't go the way they're expected. And my lovely bride has to stay at the hospital for emergent surgery. So I am left to get 3 girls to 3 different softball games and practices this evening. So again, thank you for moving it up, and I'll be here as long as possible. I do want to make sure that it's mentioned that tomorrow will be the second town hall on our schedule of town halls. That's going to be at 6 p.m. at Normal Park, the upper school. So that's the one that's closest to Dallas Road, in the main auditorium. So you can enter through the front doors of the building. That will not be the last of them. There will be another one, and specifically another one in Red Bank, because I've heard that there were a lot of people that weren't able to join us last week that would like to. So I'm going to make sure that we do another one in Red Bank soon. So I wanted to say those things, and I'm very excited about the conversation. I'm excited to hear from you all about your thoughts on it as well, as the elected officials of Red Bank. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Mr. Granum, would you like to introduce this topic at all?
Absolutely, Mayor. In your packet is a copy of the Hamilton County Schools Joint Proposed Facilities Plan, which has been widely distributed publicly as well. And I also met with each of you over the last couple of weeks and sort of assembled what you might think of as a menu of potential whereas statements. I shared that with the commission. So everybody has that. And then I went back and relabeled them capital A through capital J in the event that you might want to say, well, I like this one and this one and this one. And so I did that kind of to prime the pump, but Madam Mayor, it's over to you and the commission and your colleagues to really hash out what, if anything, the commission wants to express in terms of a resolution.
Excellent. And the purpose of this resolution would be to pass on to the Hamilton County Commission and the board of the school board to represent our collective opinion on
Yes, ma'am, that's
the
correct.
facilities plan.
Yes.
Okay. 4 of us were able to attend the town hall and hear a lot of what was said at that meeting, along with Representative Sharp and Connor.
and I watched it on YouTube.
Yes.
Or on
So-
the Facebook Live.
Excellent. So all 5 of us were able to hear what
Yeah,
was said in that meeting, and a lot of excellent points were brought up by our community there. Has everyone had a chance to read the communication from the city manager?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. So how are you all feeling about what we might want to include in such a resolution to address the facilities plan and how it might affect our community?
I think we absolutely need to retain, or make a point to try to retain an elementary school in the city limits of Red Bank, and whether or not that's Alpine Crest, sort of,
Or a new school.
yeah, or a new school at maybe the Dawn School
At the
location.
at the same site or a different site
Yeah,
within the
and
city.
I also agree that we need somebody to lead the charge.
I would like to do that.
I
would also like to do
I would
that.
also like to nominate you to do that. We have I don't know how lucky a city we can be, but it's to have on board in our city the level of qualified people. And we have a doctor with in education on our council. You're a dead ringer. So
And a graduate of Alpine Crest in the
Yeah.
1960s, I might
All
add,
right,
when it was
all
a
right.
new school. And in my report, I will say I sold candy to get window air conditioners. for that school. So then the county couldn't afford window air conditioners, so we sold candy and to raise money. Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think there should be nobody, in my opinion, but that's where that's where I'm coming at. And then as far as the school, I'd love to have it as I think the non-school that fits perfectly in that. But we need somebody to advocate for that, or we're going to do whatever we're going to do, but put it in their hands. You know?
We have a remarkable amount of investment on the board in that school because we have an alumni. We've got someone currently a child enrolled in that school.
My
obviously.
children both went there. So
Parent of alumni
yeah,
and parent of future zone students there.
yeah. So
And I have a great niece that's currently there in the first or second grade.
Yeah. So,
and yeah. So I commend the work of our elected representatives that are joining us here today, and and the passion that's here on the board. So
and in our community, as
Yeah.
was demonstrated in the town hall, a lot of passion there.
now I don't, is the wording correct?
Well,
I'm not that smart, but
I'm sure
but
Mr.
as
Stoll
long as our
will help
council,
us with the wording as well.
I'd like to hear it from our council though, just what he thinks is appropriate and
Yeah.
does this fit in line with what we're supposed to be doing, kind of stuff, and wording and such.
Yes, ma'am?
Thank you. So I was going to volunteer actually because I feel very, very passionately about championing this school, not only this school, but also Rivermont, which kind of keeps getting neglected in the conversation at the meeting that we had last Wednesday. And kind of like in some of, these bullet points here. We do have families who have in Red Bank who have children at Rivermont. So it's important to me to make sure that we're advocating for both of those schools. Yes, as the mayor mentioned, my son does go to school at Alpine Crest, so I have a very personal vested interest in this school. And all of our smaller schools in the district staying open. I also am on the PTA at Alpine Crest, so I'm already going to those meetings. I've started putting on my calendar the county commission meetings, which are at 9:30 on Wednesday mornings. To make sure that I'm there to hear that kind of conversation, which isn't very conducive for most people to attend because they're working or teaching or in school. And also, what was the other thing? Oh, yes. And, I'm planning to attend the school board meetings as well. I'm fortunate that I don't have a paid full-time job. So I have flexibility with my schedule to do that. Not to you definitely, I think that we all have a lot of vested interest in it, but I did want to throw my hat out, or my name in the hat because it's very public education is near and dear to my heart.
Is there a possibility for co-champions?
I would be,
I
happy for us to both, maybe we could split the load of attending meetings and things like that.
Co-op.
Yeah.
So, and I would say again, so to the point of some of the language in here, just like I said, I would like to see maybe some language around Rivermont Elementary reflected in here. Also, it is a little hard for me to read some of these because it almost reads like it's a foregone conclusion that these schools are going to close. And I don't think that that's representative of what our community wants. So I don't know that we need that. That some of the language in here, maybe Commissioner Phillips said, could be tweaked legally. What would that look like? And so those are just
Well, we
some of
want
my
it
initial
specific
thoughts.
enough and broad enough.
Should we put in a comment about maybe a statement of preference for Alpine Crest and Rivermont to remain open and to upgrade those facilities as a preference over closing them and consolidating or whatever,
And as a board, do we prefer to keep the physical location of Alpine Crest open over, putting more emphasis on the county considering the building of a new facility at White Oak, the former White Oak Elementary, that could serve more students?
Well, I think to Commissioner Wilkinson's point, it would be stating a preference. The preference first and foremost, I mean, for me, and from what we heard from our community last Wednesday, is that they want these schools to stay open. So for me, to me, that's the starting point. That's the place
preference.
of start, yeah, where the preference of folks in our community. And then, you know, once we see how other feedback sessions go, and we get more information back from our representatives, because there were a lot of questions asked at the town hall that we don't even have really all of the information I feel like we need to make an informed decision about that, you know, just to say, yes, absolutely, it should be this way, or we want this done, because we don't actually have all of the information right now. Like, you know, what informed this report? We don't have any of that information. There's no information in here about the data that informed the decisions in these recommendations. So to that point, you know, just saying that I would like to maybe not be so specific in saying, yes, we want the Dawn School to be the place where, or the former White Oak Elementary School to be the place where a new school resides in Red Bank definitively.
So, you know, if we're going to make our preferences clear, is there a preference among this board between maintaining the current facility at Alpine Crest, or simply maintaining the existence of an elementary school at the current location of Alpine Crest? Like if they would consider tearing down and rebuilding on the same site, for example. Is there a preference on this board between those two options?
Are you saying like building a new school facility at the current Alpine Crest site?
Yes.
And Rivermont each, or
Well, Rivermont is not in the city limits.
Right.
So I do think it's important that we do address it, because we have students zoned there, especially when we were talking about the feeder patterns. But to me, for me, the biggest part of this discussion is keeping an elementary in the city limits, whatever that looks like. Obviously, I'm the least vested on this board on Alpine Crest specifically, because my children are zoned Red Bank Elementary, and not Alpine Crest. That being said, of course, I care about all the children in our community, and from what I hear, Alpine Crest is beloved and really well performing. So we want to keep that.
That's a
Yeah.
community I think we need to try to preserve.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's the language we kind of aim for, is preserving the community specifically.
Yeah.
It's a little unrelated, but do we know why the Dawn School closed, and could we potentially use that site as sort of a temporary spot while there's upgrades being done at Rivermont, or vice versa? I mean,
I think there were some
I don't-
safety concerns.
Yeah,
okay.
rusted windows.
If we-
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I was gonna say,
we got that
our
expert in the
fire-
room.
Well, there is.
Fire inspector could give us a detailed report, I'm sure, about the issues facing that
I don't know.
structure. Representative Connor?
So I asked the same question about the facilities, and it is currently unsafe for children and would require a large amount of money to make safe for children. It is being utilized as a storage facility, so it can be accessible for adults, but it's not suitable for children.
Right.
Well, and I got just a bone-up question for you, if I may. You know, how much pull do we have as a city to influence the county decision?
It's very important, stated in the proposal, to
Okay.
listen to the communities, to get
Okay.
community support. That being said, taken to the second part, me and my vote as your representative, it's utmost important. It's why I was the first person out of the gate to get with Commissioner Sharp and get a listening session on books, the second one too. I will be present also at the facilities meeting. So there's 2 more school board meetings coming up. There's one that won't have public comment, that is just to discuss how the others will be taking in their public comment, and getting ideas from the community on the proposal. The second meeting is our standard monthly meeting on Thursdays. It's typically the third Thursday of the month. That meeting, by Tennessee state law, has to have public comment. So
Okay.
if there's someone that wishes to speak their opinion there to the full board, that's absolutely perfect and fine. It's not the method that we're hoping for, so that we can get as many voices as possible, but that is absolutely on the table.
Okay, I got another question for you.
Yes.
I know that Alpine Elementary, I've been hearing the rumblings for a long time that they were gonna close that school. Why is that one on the chopping block?
So it was on there based on the MGT report that was done before my time on the board. And I get this question a lot. MGT is just the name of the consulting firm that
Okay,
we chose to contract with, who looked through all of our schools based on overcrowding or undercrowding, based on, and they call that utilization. There's different color markers on there. That report also takes into account the age of the school building, ADA compliance, all different things
right.
that we would need to address in a perfect world, but also for our children.
Energy cost, et cetera, et
Yes,
cetera.
exactly. And from that is where these proposals were made. The people that were on the proposal committee include one school board member, one county commissioner, the mayor's office, so the mayor and deputy mayor, Tucker McClendon, and then the superintendent of schools, Dr. Dustin Robinson.
Okay, so this is just kind of like the opening salvo, right?
Exactly.
This is a conversation starter for the rest of our cities and all that.
And that's
stuff.
something that Commissioner Sharp and I were not given until right before.
Right. You got the same days we did.
I think I might have beat you by 6 or 7 hours, but I was for a couple of those.
Right.
And
Yeah, I write slow and read slower, so.
I'm welcome to field any other questions that I know. Does anyone else on the commission have another question?
Comes the school board meeting on the third Thursday of the month.
So they start at 4:30 unless there's an executive session, and they're twofold. What we did, we used to have 2 meetings on the Monday and Thursday. We've combined them into one. So at 4:30 is the beginning of the agenda session, where we'll discuss the agenda items. And then promptly at 6, if we haven't pushed into it, is when the actual work session starts, where we'll vote on items. Public comment is taken at 4:30. There's 2 ways to get onto that public comment docket. The first one is to email Sherry Ford at the school system. Her email is very readily available right at the front of the board members. And if a person does click to email all of the board members, Ms. Ford also, as our executive assistant, does get those emails. So that's a way to get on there. The second way is to arrive in person before the meeting and sign up. Now, the people that sign up before the meeting do have to have an agenda item. If you sign up, if you email Ms. Ford, you do not have to have an actual item on the agenda, because I don't know that the facilities will be on our agenda for our full work meeting, since there's a separate committee meeting. So it's important, if there's something that you want to talk about that's not on the agenda, that you do email ahead of time.
And public comments at your meetings are limited to 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
So that might be a good opportunity for our co-champions to come and read the resolution if we have one adopted.
Yes, ma'am. And that, in fact, I could say I don't know exactly how it would work, but as elected officials as well, we would welcome you, and not just the public comment. If there's an agenda section on there, we could discuss with my board chair and see if we could host the commissioners from Red Bank to make a statement.
As an agenda item rather than a public comment.
Yes, and I would, if that's something that the chairs of that committee would like, let's email, and I'll get with Ms. Tiffany Robinson and see if we can get you as an agenda item.
Thank you very much. Any more questions?
Yeah, what's the timeline on all of this? I mean, is this like hey, it was here Thursday, we got 2 board meetings and then it's done, or what?
No, so it is at the will of the board, whenever they want to call for a vote on that item. So it would have to be an item that's added by the board chair, and then something that we would vote on. Now, I know that nothing will happen until after we have taken public comment. That meeting forgive me, I'll have to check the phone that's helping to entertain right now, for the
September 14th.
September 14th. Okay, I was right. So September 14th is the facilities commission meeting. Facilities committee meeting. In that meeting, we will discuss how we are going to take further public comment and the ways that the committee, that the chair of that committee, Ms. Carissa Mosley Jones, would like us to do that. So, and how we will compile all of that. So it certainly won't happen before that, or before we've taken the public comment that we're supposed to be getting from that meeting.
No. Can we put any of these links on our YouTube channel that for the comments, things, how to?
Absolutely. If you email me, and I will get you to the exact page that has a link to the MGT report and the facilities proposal. And then from there, it's an easy navigation to email the entire board, which I'm I think is one of the best ways also.
Okay.
I obviously took a bunch of notes in our town halls and plan to continue that, but if you email me, I save every one of those into a folder, and I have who has said what and who thinks we should do what, so that I can, as best I can, take public comment and get to the right answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think I'm complete.
Okay. Just, I mean, I guess, do you have an idea, or you and Commissioner Sharp, about what the process is gonna be like for you all to come back to us with the information, based on the questions that were asked last week?
So we have compiled those and we're internally going to work on them. I personally want to be a part of that meeting on the 14th and hear what the plan for the board as a whole is
Mhm.
before I make a definitive answer of how. Because I think the consistency is definitely going to be a good plan there. But I'm glad that I've jumped ahead and started.
Okay.
So, absolutely.
I appreciated the superintendent being there.
Yes, ma'am. He will be there tomorrow as well.
Have
Confirmed
a
today.
listening ear and.
I told him today that I liked that he was there to answer some things that people had misunderstood in his proposal. Because again, this is from him and the mayor's office, so I appreciate him standing behind what he proposed, and then we'll go from there.
Any more questions for?
No, not for, Ben, anyway.
Thank you all. Again, I'm gonna continue to, I'll go home and watch the rest of it. I'm gonna raise some little children to the ball field.
Okay,
Thank you all. I appreciate the
thank
conversation.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
And, sorry, I have put on the handout page, my card and my email. So if anyone needs to get a hold of me, please.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So now that we've opened the discussion, for me personally, the items I find of the highest priority are of the email that we got from the city manager. Item E, seek to retain an elementary school within the city limits of Red Bank. And item H, emphasize the importance of the feeder pattern for all elementary school students residing in city or Red Bank, that they should continue as a cohort into Red Bank Middle and Red Bank High.
And if that could be blended with F, in that
Yeah. I agree.
endorses, well,
Not sending them to Hickson.
Yeah.
it goes with the flow of that second one you chose.
Yeah, those, I could see those being combined.
Yeah.
And Hickson has an S in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Okay.
I could definitely appreciate that, other items, like not closing Alpine Crest obviously would be a priority item as well.
Well,
Yes.
and I think, Jay too is probably the most thing,
Yep.
and I don't know how we go about that, but I think that just needs to be, and then also, I don't know if Mr. Sharp has anything to say before we close the meeting out or whatever, if we're getting our priorities right here, is there anything that should be added?
Well, I mean, I would like to note, A, celebrates the excellence of Alpine Crest Elementary School by acknowledging both level 5 and reward school status. I think that's really important to note.
Mhm.
And also the fact that Alpine Crest was one of 27 schools out of 75 schools that just helped Hamilton County achieve the greatest percentage in growth across the state. So I think that's really important to acknowledge, and maybe we can add that in there as well.
Yeah, cause I looked at, and if I may, A, B, and C are kind of like Beatitudes, these are the statements of.
The whereases.
The whereases, right?
Mhm,
Like,
sure.
and then, but the meat and potatoes get started around, E.
Yeah, and the other thing is, again, like I have said 2 or 3 times now, is definitely including something about Rivermont Elementary
Yeah,
School in here. I mean, and it could be related to this, I don't know, the heart of Hickson. It's in Chattanooga, so it's not, Rivermont is technically in Chattanooga, so.
Well, though,
Somehow
how about the, if we move the school over, would all of Red Bank go to this new school? And if so, we really want that, instead of some going to Rivermont, some going to Alpine Crest, some going to Red Bank, Elementary on the other side over here, to have it more, more inclusive of Red Bank, you know?
Yeah, I think something that has been brought up is, potentially if there's no way around this because we don't get to vote on this and
Yeah.
the school board of 11 and the county commission of 11 that are not us get to vote on this. Talked about combining Rivermont and Alpine Crest student populations into a new facility, wherever that would be. So
But keeping Hickson Elementary, for example, and DuPont Elementary in Hickson.
separate, yeah, I mean, if you have to consolidate those, if that's a conversation for folks in Hickson, honestly. But I don't, this is what I said before, I don't really want the language to reflect like the closure of the schools as a foregone conclusion, that like, there's just no way possible for us to advocate for these schools to stay open. Just make sure that the language doesn't, make any kind of definitive statements. But, I agree that if it does have to happen, that would be, preferred.
We have kind of like menu item A,
Right,
keep it open. Item B, the school in Red Bank city limits.
Right.
Item C, wherever the students end up going, make sure they come back to Red Bank for
Right.
middle and high.
that's right.
Like a flow chart of events.
Basically, yes. If no, then here.
Yeah.
Well, it
Yes, then
identifies that we stand for Alpine Crest remaining open
Right,
as the first choice,
absolutely.
then a second.
Yeah.
I
then-
don't disagree, but I do want to differentiate between whether we're talking about the physical facility that exists or a school at that location, because those are two different things in my mind. And which one are we pressing for? And I think we need to be clear about that. Commissioner Phillips, I'm sorry to.
No, that, we're on the same page.
Okay.
You're
I mean,
Mr.
that's,
Graham had something.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Mayor. One of the ones that was initially endorsed rather wholeheartedly was this H. And I think that it's important that the cohort that is in the entire elementary school matriculate as a cohort. So the current proposal would seem to imply that about when they matriculate to middle school, half go to Hickson, half go to Red Bank, and I don't think that's what anybody wants. So however they build out the elementary feeder pattern, the entire elementary as a cohort should go to one middle school
Mhm.
and one high school, and that's what's really intended with H there.
right. And to that point, thank you for mentioning that, Mr. Gordon, or emphasizing that, because the other point, which I brought up with you when we met, and I also brought up at the town hall last week, is that we want this is just another piece to what we are already talking about, but we want our schools to stay in District 6 so that we can continue voting for the school board member that represents our elementary school or schools, as many of them as possible, since we can't grab Red Bank Elementary for another 10 years until redistricting happens again. Potentially, if that might be a conversation later on, but definitely I want to keep, I want to emphasize that we want our schools to stay in District 6.
That's a good point.
Thanks for bringing that up. I was gonna, you beat
Well,
me to it.
Might that be added in G, that other nearby aging facilities retained in elementary school within District 6/Red Bank?
I think it might fit better in item E, seek to retain the elementary school within the city limits of Red Bank. And we could add something, and retain elementary schools within District 6.
Mhm.
So, does anyone see anything on the email that we have that we do not consider a priority or don't want to include in the final resolution? For me, everything on here looks good, and the additions that we've mentioned. One thing I do have some concern about is that if we make it too lengthy or include too many requests or demands, our top priorities might get watered down. So I'm hoping that, no matter how many whereases we have,
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
to explain our reasoning of how we got there, that our therefores are bolded, and, you know, stand apart from the body of the resolution so that anybody can see at a glance what our top priorities are.
Well, and whereas our top priorities are.
And yeah, maybe a number.
I'm not her counselor, you know, as long as he's comfortable writing the language, you know. But
Yeah, but perhaps even a numbered list within the body
Yeah,
somewhere would
yeah,
be appropriate.
I think, you know, these are the things and this being our priorities. I think that's a smart move. Madam Mayor.
Mayor, I suggest that we do a resolution tonight to appoint the two co-chairs, and then Mr. Stoltz and I can work with those two co-chairs to finalize
The language.
And then they'll be empowered to go into this variety of meetings that are scheduled before we meet again as a commission.
I don't have the resolution on the agenda.
It's an emergency because that meeting is coming up before we meet.
So, Mr. Stolz, would it cause any issues with the Open Meetings Act to have two co-chairs?
No.
No. And,
Because we're not ultimately voting on
yes,
this.
would we then vote to appoint those co-chairs? And we would do so during the regular meeting?
Yes,
During new business?
yes.
Okay. Let me add that to my agenda so I don't forget. Unfinished business, new business. Okay,
Heaviest head that wears the crown, right?
yes. Commissioner Sharp, is there anything you would like to add to this conversation since we have you here?
Sure. Honestly, I don't know that I have a lot to add. Thank you for recognizing me. I'm always glad to be here, especially live up the street. And my home is zoned for Rivermont Elementary. So I get this, and the calls are coming in from Rivermont Elementary also. They've just been a little slower to get to me, but they're coming. And we'll have to address that with Stuart Heights and Rivermont communities as well, I'm sure. You know, I see three overarching things that we're facing here right now. While we have a whole lot of schools in the county that have a whole lot of needs all across the county, Rivermont, Alpine Crest being two of those. There has to be an understanding, I hope, because it's not ideal for anyone in the county, I don't believe, that this isn't an Alpine Crest thing or a Rivermont thing. This is a Hamilton County thing. In order for us to address these issues across the entire county, there has to be some willingness to get creative. My ask last Wednesday was that we put our heads together and try to find that creativity in a way that maybe we end up liking the new solution more than the current set of circumstances, potentially. Who knows? There also has to be some understanding on the school board and the county commission that this isn't just about efficiencies, right? This is about serving the people of our community and providing a system of education that the people of our community desire to utilize. Right? That's our job, to produce a product that is acceptable and desirable by our communities. The third, and maybe the most tricky issue here, is that regardless of what recommendations or proposals come forward, we don't have the money to address any of them right now. The MGT report came out in 2020, and there have been some of those addressed, Tyner being one of them. A very large portion of the Tyner project being facilitated with federal ESSER dollars from COVID relief money. We're told that our county mayor is going to bring a proposal for funding sometime this fall. I'm not sure what that's all about, but I guess we're on pins and needles waiting. It has been expressed to me and publicly that the recommendations should be about $200 million for phase one. I've spoke with some pretty large contractors who told me it's probably closer to $300 million. So we'll see where all of that works out. It has happened before where we have gathered X amount of resources to execute Y number of projects and came up short. And some of those projects have fallen off the list. So we'll see how that all goes. But thank you for having me here. You guys all know how to get in touch with me. If you don't, you can call me on my phone, 423-240-9949. I do go to bed about 9 o'clock every night. I'm an early to bed, early to rise kind of guy. But, you know, I, at the end of the day, I get to vote on funding. And let's just say we need to get creative. We're going to have to get creative, like other communities have done to address the crumbling facilities that we have here. I mean, as much as we love our old schools, I think we can do better for children in our community moving forward. And if we can, I think we should. And if we all put our heads together, I think we'll come up with something that we all really like. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharp. So does staff have what they need to proceed at this point, given that we vote during the regular meeting to appoint our co-chairs?
Yes, ma'am, I think so. It won't be a perfect final draft. It'll be a revised working draft that we'll share with the co-chairs and then hammer it out, get it to their satisfaction.
Okay.
And then ultimately, we'll bring it back into the next commission meeting for a formal vote. But I think it'll be a good enough draft that they can speak to in these meetings on behalf of the commission.
Excellent. I will add one final point is just I want to encourage our committee to include the language used within the report itself. There was a lot of references to providing a optimal learning environment for students. That kind of language could be reflected in our ordinance to say things like families have Red Bank families, you know, consider Alpine Crest Elementary to be an optimal learning environment, that kind of thing. To try
And
to,
nurturing.
yes, to reflect that language back about their goals and where they're trying to go with this report ultimately. Any other comments before we move on to our next agenda item?
No. Well, just, you know, thanks. I mean, this is something staff got in front of, got it, that, you know, good job.
Yeah, on a
I
short
mean,
timeline.
you know, it's timely, it's coming up and, you know, we need to have somebody head the team and I think we got the best ones to head it. So thank you.
I'll add one thing too. I'm going to that town hall. I was really proud of our community for, you know, going and letting their voice be heard. I thought it was very, very positive turnout.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Commissioner Wilkinson, because I was also very proud of our Red Bank community for showing up in force at that town hall and showing their passion, but also remaining respectful and positive throughout the entire meeting. We ran out of parking spots. We had overflow parking. And to our community's credit, I would say that there was significantly more individuals there to participate in that town hall than we had in a recent commission meeting where a rather controversial topic of a tax increase was broached. So bravo to our community of Red Bank. We appreciate your investment and of your time into this important matter. All right, if that is all, we'll come back to that at our regular meeting. Nobody let me forget. And we'll move on to item 1, employee recognitions. Chief Seymour.
Well, the employee we're going to introduce had another obligation and had to leave.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, we knew this conversation was going to be a long one, so we'll reschedule
Okay.
One day when he's working or something like community meeting, we can all introduce him.
Would the next work session be a possibility?
I'll have to look at the work schedule, but it's possible. I'll get with
Okay.
Barry and Mr. Quinn about that. We'll get it done.
Our apologies, Chief.
No, we understand. He understands. He just had another obligation after this.
Thank you very much.
If I could,
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you profoundly to the commission for your leadership and support. I don't think I've ever seen a more clear example of the changes we've made in personnel, pay, benefits, and some other things that we did specifically to make Red Bank receptive to mid-career professionals who join us mid-career. There's almost a straight line from the changes we made in pay and benefits in the HR manual, which you'll see, to onboarding this mid-career top talent. When everybody in the region is looking for good law enforcement officers, well, we got one. And you know, there's just not guesswork here. There's prudent things to do, and this commission has done it. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Granum. So we'll table that item for a future work session, pending the employee's schedule. And we'll move on to item 2, air pollution ordinance update. Ordinance number 23-1244. Mr. Granum.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Commissioners, Ron, if you'll come up, I'll let right on you for a second. Commissioners, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ron Drumeller, Executive Director of Chattanooga-Hamilton County, Tennessee's Air Pollution Control Bureau. Ron was appointed as the Executive Director on January 4th, 2021, and comes to the local Air Bureau after a nearly 30-year career of air, energy, and other environmental work for major auto manufacturing companies in Alabama and Tennessee, environmental consulting firms, and the private sector. Ron, I'll let you start.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening. And thank you for your patience having to sit through our school board discussion.
So Mr. Graham asked that I put a presentation together for you guys. Try and give you, some of you might know who we are and our history, but some of you might not know the history. So you can maybe pull it up and I'll just face this way and run through it.
There we go.
And then afterwards, I'll read through my request. Presentation mode, there it goes. There we go. So starting off, this is our location of our bureau, which is off Bonnie Oaks near 153 in the Bonnie Oaks Office Park. We're in the same building as the Hamilton County trustee. Where Bill Hunter's folks are. All right, next slide. So who we are, we're a local quasi-government agency. Basically, we get funding from the city, the county, EPA grants, and emission fees and permits and whatnot. So we're founded by the city of Chattanooga, Hamilton County in 1969. Responsible for enforcing outdoor air pollution rules and regulations set forth by the EPA in the state of Tennessee, otherwise known as TDEC. Okay, next. All right. A little before and after picture how Chattanooga used to look like several decades ago and what it looks like now. So our mission is to achieve and exceed levels of air quality which will protect human health and safety and prevent injury to plant and animal life and property. Next. So what prompted this catalyst for change? Back in the early 60s, the Health, Education, and Welfare Department ranked Chattanooga the worst city in the nation for particulate air pollution between 1961 and 65. In fact, Walter Cronkite was on the news in 1969 and ranked us the worst in the nation for air quality. So at that time, concentrations averaged 200% above the maximum set by the U.S. Okay. So the Hamilton County, the local government, and municipalities passed the newly approved Chattanooga Hamilton County Air Pollution Control Regulations in 1969 to create a clean start. So they started off with open burning, allowed by permanent only, regulated out odors and dust, outlawed visible emissions for non-industry. They set a 4% cap on sulfur content in fuel, controlled the production of sulfur oxides, limits on industry's visible emissions. 1972, deadline for all existing major sources for air pollution to be in compliance with specified Regulation number 2 opacity level smoke emissions. So that kind of all started in 1969. Some of the progress, every major pollution source in Hamilton County met the 1972 compliance deadline at an estimated expense of $40 million. October 72, Chattanooga Industries started their new pollution control equipment together, marking the beginning of clean air, a new pride, and a new sense of real accomplishment for Chattanooga. So a little timeline for you. Back in 1972, like I mentioned, meets its particulate emission goals in 89. It meets the federal ozone standards from the EPA. In 2004, Chattanooga was not expected to meet the new standard and enters into an early action compact with the state of Tennessee. Some of those measures were seasonal burning restrictions, stage 1 vapor recovery systems at gas stations, air quality awareness program, vehicle emission testing, diesel school bus retrofitting, and lowering the truck speed limits on interstates. And in 2008, we revised the EPA revised the air quality standards, and they were met. This was a crucial step in helping Chattanooga secure Volkswagen Group of America. And I remember that because I was hired as the first environmental person with Volkswagen in 2009 during construction. So that was a big step for City of Chattanooga. In 2015, ozone standards were tightened again by the EPA, but this time Chattanooga was already meeting the new standard. In 2017, the Bureau updates the local air pollution control ordinance, which we're trying to do today. And 2023, again, we continue to maintain air quality standards, and here we are again trying to update the air pollution control ordinance requested by the state of Tennessee. A little bit of other things that we do burn permits, so there's no burning between May 1st and September 30th each year. Burn permits are issued October 1st to April 30th. If you live in a city permit area, it's $60. If you're in a county area, it's $10. And you can access our burn brochure on our internet. In fact, I think the next slide is this picture of our so asbestos. We handle that as well. We require notification, including an asbestos survey for all building demolitions and renovation projects. We require courtesy notification for removal of load-bearing wall where no regulated asbestos-containing material has been identified by asbestos inspection. And we also require a 10-day notification for a structure that will be demolished to the ground or any load-bearing walls members will be removed within one block. Okay. And next slide. We do have a text alert program for burn status. If anybody wants to know what the burn status is or air quality health alerts, it's the same text number there, the 433 number. And there's a picture of a website, cpcb.org, if anybody's interested in checking that out. And here's the letter from TDEC supporting our efforts and what we're trying to do today. And I think it's in a packet that I gave Mr. Grantham and also City Attorney. Video? Okay. Arnold Stoltz, right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. So basically, that we're work office certificate exemption. They give us the authority for regulation and enforcement here locally, because the TDEC cannot do it all by themselves. So we have to keep that as a COE in check. We cannot be any less stringent than the state. So if we don't get these ordinances revised and approved, then that would make us less stringent than the state. And next slide. And that's just a snapshot of all a one-page summary, which also is in the packet that was sent ahead of time of what's being updated in the ordinance. There's some grammatical areas, there's the correction of written number errors, and certain definitions changed and things like that. Next slide. And that was it. So basically, I'm here on behalf of the Air Pollution Control Board asking the Board of Commissioners to adopt proposed revisions to the Hamilton County Air Pollution Control Regulations, which ultimately would be adopted by legislative bodies throughout Hamilton County. The Air Pollution Control Board has a responsibility for recommending changes in the air pollution control regulations to the various legislative bodies in the county. These proposed changes to the air pollution control regulations were the subject of a 30-day public comment and a public hearing before the Air Pollution Control Bureau. No adverse comments were received on the proposed revisions. These revisions have already been adopted by the City of Chattanooga and Hamilton County. The state of Tennessee requires the air pollution control rules within all Hamilton County be no less stringent than the state rules, which I mentioned. Many of these rules have their origin as federal rules promulgated by the U.S. EPA. They are commonly adopted by reference by state and local jurisdictions to ensure national uniformity of rules and streamlining of state and local regulations, since many of them are extremely lengthy. The state recently updated the rules for new sources and sources of hazardous air pollution and is requiring their local rules be updated in order to be no less stringent than the state. Just a few of the changes. So we're adopting new source performance standards for industrial sources of air pollution, updating and adding some definitions, adding 3 additional chemicals to be excluded for the definition of volatile organic compounds, updating the list of chemicals, where there are national ambient air quality standards, adding electronic notice or e-notice provisions, updating stack testing requirements, asbestos regulations and fees, open burning rules, landfill rules, and confidentiality provisions, making minor administrative changes and corrections, and correcting grammatical errors. So again, we haven't done this since 2017, so it's quite a few updates that need to be taken place. So lastly, the Air Pollution Control Board unanimously recommends all of these provisions and asks that the county and all its municipalities enact them in order to maintain local jurisdiction over air pollution control.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I do have a handful of quick questions for you. Thank you, first of all, for your presentation. It's very informative. I especially appreciate the inclusion that Chattanooga was ranked the worst city in the nation in particulate air pollution, 1961 to 65. Because of course I've heard Walter Cronkite's "dirtiest city in America" quote over and over and over again. But it's really nice to see some data attached to that opinion. So thank you for that. I was curious because you mentioned vehicle emissions testing. I believe the state recently did away with vehicle emissions testing. Is that true?
Exactly. So the idea came from them, and they did some modeling back then, which would help be part of the early action compact. But then they did some more modeling, what was it, like a year and a half ago, and they determined that it would be safe to cancel the vehicle emissions. So it was a decision from TDEC.
Okay. Has that had any impact on your organization?
Not at all.
Lost fees? No,
No, because the fees didn't come to us.
they didn't come to you. Okay. And you mentioned that burn permits fall to your department.
Yes.
And I was curious, the fee for a burn permit, it said $60. Is that within any municipality, including ours?
That's within that's for the city limit.
Of
Then
Chattanooga
$6.
city limits or any municipality in Hamilton
No, I
County?
believe that's Chattanooga city limit. When you say, Helen?
I believe that this, I'm
Yeah.
assuming that this package would update our fees to reflect that.
Yeah.
But I can't swear that I found that specifically there.
Okay.
Because there were no changes in fees in the school district.
Right.
Are we currently at 60, you know? Or
It should be 10.
It was just Chattanooga.
Because it says the city permit, but it's referring to city of Chattanooga specifically.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we would still be $10,
Correct.
even though we're
Hamilton-
municipality.
Hamilton County, right.
Okay.
Because there's 11 municipalities and you're one of those 11.
Okay, but that city permit is
Right.
city of Chattanooga permit. Okay, thank you for that. Did you have a
No,
question?
well, yeah, the CMAQ thing, I was a benefit of one of those.
What was that?
The CMAQ grant, or the CMAQ, are we still a part of that? Are we still one of those counties that are in the congested?
CMAQ.
Yeah, the
Congestion
congested.
mitigation, air quality,
Yeah,
it's a state grant.
yeah, that's why we used to have the emissions testing and all that stuff every year. I think that was part of those, because we were one of those counties in Hamilton.
I think the Bicycle Boulevard is also a
Yeah.
CMAQ grant that we received. Through TDOT, not TDOT.
Okay,
TDOT.
TDOT.
Okay,
Okay.
different organization.
Right, right.
okay.
That's why I didn't recognize it.
Yeah. You're off the hook. Finally, if your organization manages burn permits, do you approve burn permits for the purpose of habitat management? Like to maintain a prairie habitat, for example, periodic controlled burns?
The forestry division handles the periodic
Okay,
burns for that, but as far as what you're talking about, that doesn't sound familiar to me.
so your burn permits that you handle are more for burning brush and
Exactly.
that kind of thing.
Yes.
So you would go through a different division for controlled burn habitat management.
Now, we do control burning, but as far as the habitat, that's new to me.
Okay.
I don't recognize that.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's it for me. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for.
I was just going to make a
Councilman
quick observation. We had some really bad air quality days this summer. So it
Leading
makes,
fires.
Robinson.
yeah. So it makes me appreciative that that's not our daily reality. So,
Yeah, we do all we can to publicize and get communications out there, and that's why I mentioned about the text alert. And we also coordinate with the news channels, and they rely on us and on our data and also we give them the pollen data too.
That's great. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
All right. Next up, we have ARPA update. from Mr. Alexander.
look so
Oh,
pretty.
from Mr. Are you next? Did I say it wrong? Oh, I'm so sorry. Sit back down, Mr. Alexander. You're not up yet.
Very.
My apologies.
Way to be on your toes though, John. He was ready, but
I threw myself off because we reordered our first item on the agenda. So I had skipped over one.
popped right up.
So we'll go back up to item 4, discuss the intent to apply letter to TDEC in order to collaborate with Hamilton County Water Quality Department on a grant. Ms. Johnson, thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This agenda item is really seeking a letter of support. This is an opportunity that has been presented to us. Seems like always with grant funding, it's usually a short window of time. I think what's becoming more the norm is pre-application of grants. What happens is traditionally we've heard of letters of intent, notice to apply. This particular grant is a competitive grant through TDEC. The county water quality department is seeking our support for that pre-application goal to submit for a project. If a project is selected, then TDEC reaches back out and says, okay, now you can submit the formal process. So if in this journey we are successful, it'll come back to you for more formal action, probably in the form of a resolution. But tonight I'm just asking for a letter of support. We have some illustrations here. The particular property that they are considering for a stream restoration project, the Streamers Branch at City Park, which is across from Food City, where we have our Food Truck Fridays. As you can see, the straight blue line, that is your channelized stream right now. Nothing natural about it, other than probably the sediment and some of the growth that's happening from failed maintenance on our part, to be quite honest. Our stormwater project, as we move forward, will help remedy some of these conditions. But this is an opportunity to partner with Hamilton County Water Quality to submit for that grant application. On the next slide, next page, next slide up. Push it up, yeah, there we go. This is just a rendering of what could look like. It's part of the process to submit to TDEC as a pre-application, what area we're looking for, who owns that, and what's the potential positive impact of that restoration project. So not to get too hung up on that, but that's ultimately where you start, is how could it be?
We don't even want to call it a concept, it's a conversation starter.
Yeah, yes. The grant itself, again, is very competitive. And it's my understanding there was 1 of 2 projects that Hamilton County Water Quality was wanting to take into consideration, and this is the first one. I think it has a really good opportunity to make a huge impact, not just for the stream, but for the community as a whole, to show how something can be done. They're lengthy. There's a lot of work that goes into it. They can be costly. But I think once you take that initial dive and then have an example to fall back on, it's a tremendous opportunity. It is an 80-20, but the county is proposing through your water quality department to offset the 20%. So really our contribution will be in-kind opportunities as they arise, whether that's staff, in-house, administratively, in the field, where we can contribute, we will. But as far as the monetary contribution, that would be that 20% would come from the water quality department. Okay,
That's incredible.
absolutely, yes.
Absolutely incredible. What's the timeline?
The pre-application deadline is the 15th of this month.
Okay.
So from that, I think it goes in. I'm not sure what that turnaround time is, but I know right now we're targeting that September 15th for them to be able to get a letter of intent pre-application submitted.
Well, this dovetails really nicely with our stormwater goal as a
Yes.
commission.
Absolutely, yes.
Our stormwater champion have anything to say about it in particular?
No, this is something that I have actually talked about with my
Yeah.
former planning commissioner appointee.
Yes,
You know,
we've talked about it. Again, sometimes these grant opportunities, like I said, they're just small windows of time. And being poised and ready to apply, I think more importantly is just the intent and the idea if that's what you want to see.
is this a grant opportunity that comes up like every year on an annual basis or that you're aware of? maybe you wouldn't be aware, I don't know.
I would say it comes up routinely, but
Okay.
it being competitive, that's usually where it comes into play.
Okay.
A lot of applications will go on, but they won't be deemed competitive.
Mhm.
So we're in a special place to have the opportunity to be approached about this
Correct.
project,
Yes.
solicited
absolutely.
for this project as
Yeah,
opposed to.
especially working with Hamilton County Water Quality, we already partner with them.
Mhm.
They help administer our permit through TDEC as an MS4. That relationship is very beneficial. We get a lot of engineering services through them. We get a lot of site inspections. If we have some erosion issues from a job site, their staff is very quick to respond, communicate with those property owners and make sure that it comes into compliance. So the value that we get in contributing with that department is tremendous. And again, this opportunity, and for them to have selected this particular piece of Stringer's Branch in the city is a great opportunity.
Can you just very briefly, for maybe anybody here who might not know, what does it mean to restore?
Yeah, again, the previous picture shows the channelization, which is the walls. They've almost built a flume where
Right.
it originally went in. And that, initially, I think the idea was to move water very quickly when that happens. But ultimately, you do a lot more harm than good down the road, especially giving water an opportunity to slow itself down and to rechannelize. You have the opportunity to bring wildlife and vegetation back in. Anytime you can slow the water down, it gives a better opportunity to prevent flooding downstream. You also add to the wildlife, the habitats that support the stream as well.
So that would mean like breaking up that concrete, right?
Absolutely.
It would be
Yeah,
gone.
you would almost, the goal is to restore it
Yes.
to a natural flow.
Excellent.
So this would also lay out the stream banks,
Yep.
for example, so we would no longer have a 4-foot concrete drop in the middle of our park
Correct.
that
Say a
children
safety
run
hazard,
around
yeah.
in. Yes,
Yes.
because
Would it be brought up, more shallow, I should say?
When you lay something back, and you allow the water to do its natural path, that would automatically allow some shallow of the depth. We would not necessarily change the elevation of it. Again, this is early in the process. There's going to have to be some modeling that happens. There's a lot of permitting. We'll have to get an AREP permit. There's a whole lot of other agencies that get involved. We'll have to actually submit back to FEMA for our flood map, because we would be changing it. So there's a lot of steps that go along the way. And again, I can't say enough about partnering with Water Quality Department. They have some top-notch experience and level of expertise to help guide this project.
I was going to say applying under their umbrella would certainly give us a great benefit over trying to do it ourselves.
Absolutely.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Mayor. I think of this term in terms of elastic versus inelastic. The current system with its hard walls is very inelastic. This allows some elasticity so the stream bed itself can absorb and moderate surges. When you get a heavy rainfall, the storm bed itself swells up and then slowly drains down just more naturally. And I also wanted to add that the city of Chattanooga is doing things similar to this on Mountain Creek. There was a big effort north of Red Bank on where they did similar type work on Mountain Creek itself. It wasn't channelized like this, but there had been some engineered modifications to Mountain Creek that had the effect of channelizing it and making it faster. And they're undoing that, and that benefited Red Bank by changing the floodplain on our frontage along Mountain Creek, specifically the school campus area and our park. And so that's kind of going on concurrently by Chattanooga, and we were just simply the beneficiaries of the work they're doing. in the Mountain
Downstream
Creek area.
beneficiaries.
Yep.
Yeah. Nowadays, my understanding is channelizing is not as popular as it once was. Shooting water downstream as quickly as possible is a liability to the downstream businesses in the floodplain. For example, if we can, my understanding about meanders is it adds water filtration opportunities for water quality and water infiltration opportunities to actually allow more floodwater to be absorbed at this public park that then would not go on downstream to flood a business.
Correct. The modeling will reveal a lot more hard data that tells you what those outcomes could be.
I do have one more question for you. I know this is just a discussion starter. very much pending
Yes.
changes if this grant were to be awarded. But in your opinion, is there any opportunity to work with Red Bank United Methodist next door to continue that restoration onto their property?
I think initially to propose this simply because it is sole ownership of the city of Red Bank.
Mhm.
It alleviates some of the hurdles of easements, any type of restrictions and those types of things that would have to go into play whenever you cross that property line. Not to say it's an impossible that it couldn't happen. I have no doubt that we would explore that if we could. I think initially that's why we're starting in this piece.
So better not to complicate the grant application, but if the grant were to be awarded, it's an avenue that could be explored?
Possibly, yes. I will seek clarification on that, if it can be expanded,
Okay,
what that might look like.
excellent.
Does Red Bank not have the right of way of that?
In some
Street?
cases we do, and in some cases we don't. Sometimes some property lines have actually come up to the center line of the branch itself. So it gets a little bit complicated, but I think anytime the jurisdiction is looking to make an improvement, and provide that heavy lift, my experience has been most property owners, whenever they're fully aware of what those benefits are going to be, usually it's an easier buy-in.
Typically, we don't own the street as a city. It's not a right of way per se, like a road. It's privately held land.
Yeah.
And that's why we can't go on there with public works and makes improvements, even sometimes the walls collapsing. We have to work with the owner, to get it fixed, rather than go in there as a public works project and fix it ourselves.
My understanding is this and this segment behind this police station are some of the only segments where actually the stream is on city property on both sides. So this is a unique opportunity. Any other questions for Deputy Director Johnson?
I do not.
Thumbs up on a little.
2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Both of
If
you.
I had more
Great.
thumbs,
Yeah.
I'd put them up. All right. Now, I'm sorry for the false start. Director
John, how are you?
Alexander.
Hey, hello. I don't know how fast trucks are going in 2004, but those guys need to look at that again. However, first page of this is the ARPA progress report updated. You should have March of 2022. Okay, that was our initial plan. We completed it in March and presented it to the commission, according to how the commission was, so all the little interacting was prior to that date. So we started in March. We got 8 parts delegated out. What I wanted to show you on the next page, second page, is we wasted no time trying to get this money out. Like the employee bonuses, we wanted to get that in their hands as quick as possible. So we did half of the employee bonuses. And if I had my druthers back then, I'd have put this in the same order as the chart. And the other thing we knocked out was the COVID, the 911 COVID donation. So what I was impressed with is the speed at which these guys, these department heads, started using their funds or allocations for what they needed. So the main thing was the employee bonuses and then the 911, but you'll see also right off the bat, we only have 3 months for facilities improvements, internet technologies, and then down below is department equipment. So we spent over $300,000 in those 3 months. So we moved to the second year we have, and that's through June of this year, June 30th. And you can see we've spent almost $1 million, $982,254. Once again, at the very top, knocked out the other half of the employee bonuses. And then you'll see a lot of activity in internet technologies. That's some money spent. We got the product in, and that's the hold up on a lot of this stuff is it's on order. So the other thing was department equipment. And that's mainly the police and the fire department. They got the stuff that they needed, the expensive stuff. And so once again, not wasting any time spending this money. So in all, we've spent $1,297,670. Around the change. Okay, and then on the final page, and that should say September 2023. I got my old copy.
That was actually the first page in the commissioner's packet.
You got mixed up?
So John's referring back to this one.
29.
Yep. It's right after the school facilities plan on
So
page
you want to
29
be
of
on
your
that
of your agenda,
this year, 2023.
work session packet.
Okay, you'll see some lines crossing out certain parts of the projects. Go down below, you got 911 complete, employee pay bonuses complete, department equipment complete. Okay, and then a little further up, elect City Hall sign, we all seen that. And then you get a little further up, you got the jetter truck is on order. So, you know, this stormwater has been a slow process because of TDEC and, you know, find out where they are as far as allotting us money. So we're getting around that little barrier. So what we have left is $2,215,318. So we are working on it. We've got the police have their generator. They've been wanting a generator since I've been here. And then parks improvements, I've seen POs come through with all sorts of stuff being added to all the parks. So it's looking good. It's, you know, great to have this money, federal money coming straight to us. And per capita, it's $294 per capita
Nice.
to make up $3.5 million.
There's still $37 unallocated. Could we like maybe buy Harry something special?
Yeah, it's like buying a bottle of wine or something.
Oh, no. When's his birthday? Maybe we could buy him something special. Birthday.
So anybody got any questions about what?
We will continue to come back to the commission at interim basis. We have until the end of 2026 to actually fully spend this out.
Yeah, because I think a few more projects are about ready to be.
Correct. We're in the go mode on every dollar on this page. So the balance that's unspent, there's a plan for that.
That's what I was going to ask about. You know, I mean, we're taking applications right now for the nonprofit board to help us start making, you know, moves with the $150,000 that we allocated. And I had to remember that it was 2026 because I'm like, well, we need to spend this money. But if it's 24, 25, 26, 50, 50, 50. So yes, glad that we're making moves on that too.
On track.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. All right, next up, we are going to hear from our Parks Manager, Mr. Graby, quite a few times. So first item, supporting the National Recreation and Parks Association NRPA Parks for Pollinators BioBlitz initiative each year in the month of September. Resolution number 23-1606.
Awesome.
Once more.
Thank you, Mayor Hollyberry, and thank you, commissioners, for having me up here. Like Mayor said, the NRPA has a program called the Pollinators in Parks, and every year in September they do what's called a BioBlitz. Essentially, they get local parks and recreation departments to put on a BioBlitz in their parks through the iNaturalist app, and they set up a program, an event in their parks so that people can go into the parks with an iNaturalist app, snap pictures of pollinators, plants, and invasive species, and upload it to the project. And that way, by the end of September, we have a snapshot of pollinators, plants, and invasives in our area. And it also gets uploaded to the NRPA's national database, which helps scientists and other people see migration patterns of different pollinators and see where they're at in the United States. It's a fun, free initiative for the city to participate in. It won't cost us anything. We've already created a iNaturalist account and set up everything. So with your permission, we'll be able to go ahead with it. It will just be in White Oak Park in the White Oak Connector. We're starting small this year to see what kind of interaction we get with the community. And if they really enjoy doing it, it's something that we can expand into all of our parks in the coming years and participate every September. And then lastly, they also will put us in a lottery to win up to $1,000 to put towards planting native species to attract pollinators.
Excellent. That's pretty exciting. Do we have any questions regarding the BioBlitz?
Pretty cool. Thank
Yeah.
you for finding
Coordinating that. Yeah. So next you have award RFP for Parks Needs Assessment Resolution number 23-1607.
Awesome. So we put out an RFP for a needs assessment and master plan. It was open for a month. We received 3 bidders, which one of them had submitted a non-conforming and incomplete response. So the other two were evaluated by 3 staff at City Hall. And all of our evaluations came to the same conclusion, that the presentation from Kimley Horn was the best bid. And it also happened to be the cheapest of the two at $74,820. And this is budgeted under the operating budget from Public Works. And we are recommending that the city allow the city manager to enter into an agreement and award the bid to Kimley Horn to do the Parks and Recreation needs assessment and master plan. We also felt that Kimley Horn had some of the best examples of other cities our size. And they also were very big on community engagement, which is something we were really looking for through the process.
Excellent. Do you happen to know any of the communities that they've done in the past that we could look at examples?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can definitely send you guys more examples from what they sent us. They have a myriad of cities from Gatlinburg to they're doing East Ridge's 5-year master plan right now. And so for us, they would be doing something we've never gotten to do here in Red Bank before, doing the needs assessment, which is really pulling that community engagement and then creating that master plan of, we've got all of this community input. Now, how are we going to make this happen over the next 10 years? And so, like I said, East Ridge is doing a 5-year plan with them right now. And so they're engaging with cities our size locally, as well as all over the state and the country.
Very cool. I'm excited to see how that comes out. It came out several times. The need for a master plan was mentioned just in our last meeting. So cannot wait to see that get going.
Another great thing about this is once we've completed our needs assessment and master plan, it'll make us more competitive in grants that we're applying for. So that'll kind of take us into our next one.
Yes.
I have a question about the timeline. When would they get started? Do you know, and what that would look like?
Yes, so once you guys approve for the city manager to award them the bid and to sign the agreements, then they would put out their contract with a detailed scope of service that would get vetted by our city attorney. And then once he gives it the approval and okay, then our city manager can sign it and we can start that contract. My estimates would probably be early October. And it would probably be about a 7-month project from what they have proposed, but that is subject to change on our needs and wants as a city.
Okay, that's great. And I already looked at their website and they had a lot of really cool concepts. And I noticed particularly on examples that they provided that it was very community engagement focused, which I very much appreciated. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for presenting this.
Yes. Any more questions for Mr. Grady? Any thoughts from our parks champion?
Well, the company I work for, Reagan Smith, had entered this, so puts me in a kind of a weird spot. But,
well, since they didn't get the bid, you don't have to recuse
yeah, so
yourself.
I don't have to worry about it on a commission level, but I might have to hear about it at the office. So maybe I'll seek some private feedback.
This is how we know it's not up to you.
Exactly.
All right. We'll move on to the next item for Mr. Graby. Game Time Grant Application Resolution Number 23-1608.
Yeah, so as I stated, once we have the assessment and master plan completed, we'll be more competitive for grant applications. The White Oak Park playground is almost 20 years old. It is in poor shape, to be polite, and it needs to be replaced. We had applied for the Tennessee Department of Intellectual Disabilities to get a grant to help replace that playground. We unfortunately did not get it. The whole state was going to that very competitive grant. Out of the 80+ applicants, they only chose 7 on there. So we went to Plan B, and Plan B is the Game Time grant, which Game Time is a subsidiary of Playcore, which is based out of Chattanooga. And every year they put out a grant that allows up to 100% matching on playground functionally connected equipment. And so what functionally connected means is that it's one structure. So think of what's at White Oak Park right now. There's the structure that has stairs, that has slides, has the climber. And then functionally connected would be things like stepping pods, or little zip playthings, things like that come into one structure. We've already budgeted $165,000 to replace this playground. So applying for this grant would allow us to stretch that money and essentially have the structures, the replacement of the equipment paid for, leaving our budgeted money of $165,000 to be for getting poured in place, surfacing so that it can become an inclusive environment, as well as the shipping and the installation. This company, Game Time, is in the Omnia group, and so they've been vetted, and so we wouldn't have to go through the procurement process since they're already in that, which would make accepting this grant and purchasing equipment from them a lot easier. And then to save some money to put more into making this an inclusive playground, the Public Works Department would take care of the demolition and removal of everything so that we can really optimize what we're getting into White Oak Park.
Excellent.
Do you know how competitive this grant is?
So from my conversations with the person who would be applying with is if we apply for it, we would most likely get it.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me.
And if the commission decides to go ahead and pass this tonight, I would text them, we would apply, and we would know by tomorrow.
Oh, wow. That's a quick turnaround.
Hands on the
grant
table then.
application.
No
All right.
pressure, no pressure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Any,
that's great. Thank you so much.
any more questions on the Game Time grant application?
Sounds great.
All right, next item, we have appointment to the Parks and Rec Board, Resolution 23-1609.
Awesome. Well, as you guys know, we open up applications for 1 month for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, also known as PRAB. We had an overwhelming amount of inquiries into the board, and we went through all the applications and chose the 10 applicants who were the best fit from experience, background, and working knowledge that has brought forward a capable and diverse board. We will also be bringing on a professional board member from the Orange Grove to help with inclusivity and diversity. They did not take any of the spaces of Red Bank citizens, so all 10 of the board appointee members are Red Bank citizens, and this extra one who's going to be a professional from the outside, not living in Red Bank, is not taking any of our citizen space on this board. We were asking you guys to sign the resolution bringing on these 10 board members to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Excellent.
So is there any issue with that? Would they basically be functioning in like an advisory capacity? So it's still in line with our ordinance?
Yes.
This is the first I've heard of that.
Okay,
I don't know the answer to the question. Is that person gonna be a voting member?
No, they're purely advisory.
Okay.
Then that's fine.
okay, great. Thank you.
All right, any more questions regarding the board, Parks?
No questions,
And
but
that
I mean, for a city our size, to have that talent level is incredible. I mean, we got 12,000 citizens. I mean, this is all talk about. It's a phenomenal, really.
If I can add one thing, I know, starting the process, we actually mapped the applicants just so that we were getting true representation across the city.
Geographically.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
we're able to check that box as well.
We roughly
Excellent.
have 2 members from North Red Bank, 2 from the center, and then center down all the way to the tippy south is 6 members.
okay.
Excellent.
So North Red Bank will hopefully not be a forgotten stepchild any longer in the Parks Department.
Nope.
All right.
No,
Anything else?
that list is excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't
Really
wait.
excited about
Yeah,
this.
the turnout was phenomenal. It was great to see Red Bank get really excited about this. And like you said, we have a very talented and diverse board.
How many total applicants did we get?
I want to say it was around 12 or a little more.
Yeah. So yeah, with lots of enthusiasm in the community around this board, which is exciting.
Very exciting.
All right, so we have, if there's no more questions on the board, we have the last item for Mr. Gravy, Red Bank Pool Agreement, Resolution Number 23-1610.
Excellent. Well, the pool season may be over, but the important things that we've talked with them aren't. So the contract presented to you guys today has been vetted by both the Red Bank City Attorney and the Red Bank Pool Advisory Committee and is ready for commissioner's authorization. The only piece in there that really changed from last year is that we're raising the insurance requirements for them from 1 million to 3 million per incident for individuals on property. And they have agreed to do that, but they will be updating that insurance before the next pool season starts, since the pool season just ended.
Okay. Mr. Granum?
Mayor, I'll just add one minor point. It's a license agreement. And get kind of technical and wonky, but that's the nature of the relationship we have with the pool advisory committee. They have a license to operate the pool. The city owns it, and they have a license to operate.
It's one of a handful of license agreements that we have
Yes,
with
ma'am.
the boxing club and
The ball
the
fields.
the ball fields.
Correct.
That's right. We don't charge them.
Just a agreement.
Just the agreement.
They help with maintenance of those properties and upkeep of that, and then we will do the big things, and sometimes they're shared.
Okay. All right. Any other questions regarding the pool board?
No, there were a couple of folks from the PAC, they called it Pool Advisory Committee, that were concerned that it might close. And I said, contact the folks at City Hall to be specific.
No,
So,
there's no.
thank you.
I would like to squash that epically, powerfully right now.
Well, I didn't
There's
think
no-
that was right.
There is, I don't know where that came from, no.
No, I didn't either.
We have a fantastic working relationship with the pool advisory committee. Those are amazing people that donate a lot of hours of labor. And, it's just out of the goodness of their heart as members of the community. And so maybe it would be appropriate, I'll take this as a homework assignment to come up with a thank you note. And we just recognize them at this point of renegotiating the license agreement, that we take a moment and celebrate their service to the community, because it's truly extraordinary. They give a lot of time, and they handle some complicated issues, specifically money. They take in a lot of cash and they handle it appropriately, and that's not a small thing. So I really appreciate the good work that pool advisory committee does.
Well, and given the significant popularity of the community pool in our city, I'm sure it will feature prominently in the Parks Needs Assessment that we are planning to vote on later this meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this, just really quick, is this renewed every year?
No, I don't have the exact numbers, but it's for every 5 years.
Okay.
And I want to also not miss an opportunity to give shout out to our public works crew. Greg and the people on public works team, they're great partners to the PAC. The PAC takes a lot of like consumable stuff, like toilet paper. But when things hard break at the facility, they call Public Works, and Public Works comes in and does facility maintenance on things like pumps and bigger capital items. And it's just been a fantastic partnership to keep a pool that's really well beyond life cycle, meeting the needs of the community year over year.
Go Gators.
Yes. All right. Any other thoughts on the pool board?
Does that include the swim team? Does this include the swim team?
The swim team, I think, goes through the pool advisory committee to use that.
Yes, they manage that relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, we do not manage any of the relationship with the users, just strictly with the PAC. And then the PAC sets the hours for public use, and they make the arrangements with the school. And I don't know that they have any other special users beyond that, but they do handle that.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you.
What's that perfect voice?
Birthday parties.
Birthday parties.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Gravy, for your significant contribution this meeting. We are just about out of time for our work session. If it's all right with everybody, we'll table the rest of the items for the
What I was
regular
going to
meeting.
suggest it.
All right. If that's okay with everyone, we'll adjourn our work session. Does anybody need a restroom break before we begin our 6 o'clock meeting? Yep. Okay.